All right, today we're diving into something big, a new global standard that's designed to fight corruption by using one incredibly powerful weapon, transparency. Let's jump right in. So, before we can talk about the solution, we've got to really understand the problem. So, let me ask you a question. What's the one thing, the one condition that corruption absolutely needs to survive and to really truly thrive? The answer? It's secrecy. Simple as that. Think of it like mold that only grows in the dark. Corruption flourishes when things are hidden, when deals are made behind closed doors, and when nobody's watching. It's the oxygen that misconduct breathes. Okay, so if secrecy is the problem, the solution is actually pretty straightforward. You just turn on the lights. And that brings us to the whole point of this new standard, the power of disclosure. The standard, SFC 300, gives us a really clear definition. And you got to pay attention to the key words here. It has to be deliberate, right? Not some accident. It has to be timely, not after all the damage has already been done. And maybe most importantly, it's got to be complete. Because, let's be honest, half-truths just don't cut it. And this quote just brilliantly sums up the bigger picture here. This isn't about creating more paperwork or just checking a box for some regulator. The whole point is to frame disclosure as a core part of good governance. It's a tool you actively use to build and protect an ethical organization from the ground up. So, it's a powerful idea, no doubt, but how do we actually make it happen in the real world? Well, that's where SFC 300 comes in. It provides a really concrete blueprint for any organization to follow. The standard gives us this 5-step blueprint for building a real culture of transparency. First, you need a foundation, a formal written policy. Can't be vague. Then, you need someone who owns it, a specific person or a team that's responsible. To make it stick, everyone, and I mean everyone, needs training. And for accountability, you need two absolutely critical things: a permanent, unchangeable record of every disclosure, and real, actual consequences if someone breaks the rules. Now, this is where it gets really clever. The standard actually embeds transparency directly into an organization's most public document, its financial statements. It literally forces them to tell the world, here's what we've done to fight corruption, here's whether any of our top leaders were involved in misconduct, and, oh, by the way, here's exactly how much money we're investing in our integrity. There's nowhere to hide. Okay, so that's the framework. But what does this all look like day to day? Let's dig into some specific, real-world examples that come straight from the standard's own guidance. This is the perfect example of why completeness is everything. In the bad example, hey, the director technically disclosed a conflict, but by leaving out his wife's role, he hid the real picture, didn't he? The good disclosure tells the whole story, and that's the entire point. A partial truth is a whole lie. Now, when it comes to public officials, you better believe the standard raises the bar way higher. And for good reason, right? Public trust is the only currency they have. That's why they have to lay their financial cards on the table every single year. The rule is simple. If there's even a potential for a conflict, you have to report it and you have to step away from the decision. No exceptions. And this idea of transparency, it doesn't just stop at the company's front door. The standard is smart. It knows that some of the biggest risks come from the outside. We're talking consultants, suppliers, even nonprofit partners. The principle is crystal clear. If you have a hand in the decision-making process, you're playing by the exact same rules of disclosure. So we've seen the rules, we've seen the examples, but let's just zoom out for a minute. Why go through all this trouble? What's the ultimate payoff for embracing this level of transparency? $140,000. Now, that number, it comes from one of the examples in the standard, and it tells such a powerful story. By forcing a company to disclose how much it spends on anti-corruption, the standard does something totally brilliant. It reframes integrity not as some hidden cost you have to bear, but as a visible, strategic investment in your own future. So, at the end of the day, this is about so much more than just catching wrongdoing. It's a proactive strategy. When your actions are out in the open, you build accountability. When ethics become part of your DNA, you build integrity. And when the public can actually see how you operate, you build trust. And all of that leads to one thing: stronger, more resilient institutions for all of us. And that really just leaves us with a final question to think about. This standard is for organizations, sure, but the principle behind it is universal. It kind of forces us to ask ourselves, in our own lives, in our own world, what happens when we choose transparency over secrecy? What's just one secret that, if it were revealed, could make your world a better place? This audio summary is issued by the American Anti-Corruption Institute, AACI, and produced using Notebook LM. The new standard SFC 300 disclosure is now open for public comments and feedback on our website. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025.